I went through 6 weeks of BCG treatment for non-invasive stage 0 bladder cancer. And so the follow-up to my BCG treatments was that my doctor was going to have a bladder resection surgery for me to remove a diverticulum on my bladder, which is where the cancer was growing.
There are so many guys that want to be the tough guy. They want to power through it. Oh, I'm not hurting. This isn't bad. And they ignore symptoms. They ignore signs. And then later on, they find out that, they could have possibly done something earlier.
I came home within 24 hours with a 4.5-inch incision that runs from my navel south, and also an awesome catheter bag. And I say awesome sarcastically, that's not awesome.
My name is Michael. I'm from Florida, and I was diagnosed in 2023 with non-muscle invasive high-grade bladder cancer.
I'm regaining my strength and my flexibility very slowly. I feel like I get a little bit better every hour. I can reach a little bit further. I can stand a little straighter. You forget about how every move that you make involves your abdominal muscles. So when I sit upright in a chair or when I stand for any period of time, I can only tolerate it for so long until my muscles kind of start shaking and I have to sit down. Doctor says it's going to be a 3 to 6 week recovery, but it might be longer until I regain full strength in my core.
We did the TURBT. He got the results back. And the thought was, okay, we're going to do this TURBT, and then we're going to wait like 6 weeks for your bladder to heal from it, and then we're going to do BCG treatment. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to do this. It'll be the spring. I'll have the summer to recover. You're trying to timeline your life and plan your life out. Maybe I'll be well enough that we might be able to get away for a weekend during the summer. But cancer doesn't do that. Cancer, the medical profession is a science, and cancer needs to be treated appropriately. And so we get the results of the TURBT, and he says, when I dug in this one spot, I didn't get enough of the muscle. And so I'm not 100% sure this isn't muscle invasive. And so I want to consider doing a second TURBT. And that was like a gut punch. Like, oh my gosh, I've already done 2 of these. They're not the most comfortable thing. They're not the best. They're not the most fun thing to recover from. And now you want to do another one, and it's going to push my timeline back another 6 weeks. Let me think about this. And I said, what's the justification for this? And so this was this became the negotiation, and he said, well, if I'm thinking of doing this by the book and following the standard of care, I really need to do this one more TURBT, because I want to make sure that I'm not treating the wrong kind of cancer. So at that point, I had to put my faith in the doctor and say, you know what, if that's what you need, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to do it. So then we got the TURBT. He confirmed it was not muscle invasive, which is a huge difference, because at this point I've done my reading and I know if it's muscle invasive, they're going to talk about taking the bladder out. And then that becomes a huge change in lifestyle potentially. And that's a game changer. So we really wanted to make sure that we did that and checked it. It came back as non-muscle invasive. So now we get to move into the BCG treatment. I had a problem when I was setting up my maintenance BCG back in the fall with a shortage that delayed me for a few weeks. I had some great news in January. My doctor told me that I had no evidence of disease. He wanted me to set up another round of maintenance BCG so he can check me in the spring. And so I immediately called my local urologist to set up a maintenance BCG round. And they told me that they were unable to fulfill my request and I needed to call back in March. This was a January request, and they wanted me to call back in March due to the BCG shortage. So if you've heard of the BCG shortage, it is real. It exists because there is only one pharmaceutical company that produces the BCG solution that's used in the treatments, and there's not enough to go around for bladder cancer patients. So the initial course was 6 treatments, and there is, of course, there's BCG shortages that because there's only one plant that makes the BCG solution. And so when we were trying to schedule, here we go again. We try to schedule with Moffitt, and Moffitt says, okay, we'll see you for your first treatment in like 2 months. And we're like, oh my gosh, 2 months for BCG. So my wife, got back on the phone. One of our healthcare family members said, there's a urologist downtown in town about 10 minutes from your house, and they also do BCG treatments. You don't have to go all the way over to the cancer center.
And so we called there. I had my own little setback with it. First of all, so BCG now is a new thing you got to learn about. I've learned about TURBT. I feel like I've mastered that. I've done 3 of them. So now we get to BCG treatments, and I want to know, how is my body going to react? What is it like? Do you really have to like roll over while you're holding it in your body? How long do you hold it? Is it hard to hold it? There were so many questions. So I started going online, looking at YouTube and TikTok and different places to see if there are people that are experiencing this and talking about it, so I can get a sense. And I was really shocked that there wasn't a lot out there that I could find of people that were talking about the experience. I found 1 or 2 people that talked about it, and at this point I said, if I'm a person of faith, and I said, Lord, if you're going to get me through this, I want to try to help others. And so we get to BCG, and that was kind of the impetus for me to start a TikTok page. The TikTok page already existed. On vacation a couple times, my kids were like, "Hey, you should do this dance and record it. It'd be funny." I teach at a performing arts school. I'm a performing artist, so it wasn't that much of a stretch, but it was still funny to my kids' friends to see, their dad dancing. So I had a TikTok page already, and so I decided to open my camera and start talking about my bladder cancer journey. And that was really the first time we opened up at all. We had kept it really quiet, really close within the family. But then I decided that I want to be a vessel to help others through this process. The very first one was actually the hardest one to hold for the full 2 hours. I'm breathing heavily and I'm readjusting my position as I sat on the couch at home. They didn't make me stay at the doctor's office, which thankfully I was able to relax and be comfortable at home. But the treatment, knocked me down. It gave me like flu-like symptoms, and then over the course of the 6 treatments, each time, you kind of get knocked down a peg each time, and by the time you get to the end, it's flu-like symptoms for like 3 or 4 days. I was able to do them on Fridays. So I had Saturday and Sunday. And then by Monday, I was probably about 75%. And I would go back to work. And, my boss at work knew that we had to keep an eye on you. And, there were a couple times we were doing cafeteria duty. And he's like, "You don't look good. Go sit in your office and, make phone calls or read emails or do something, but quit walking around." So I just had a great support system, throughout. So it knocked me down. All weekend your urine burns, and you have frequency. So like, every time you go to the bathroom, it's going to burn, but you got to go to the bathroom, and you got to follow the protocols and pour bleach in the toilet because you don't want to make your family or other people in the community sick by flushing this this potentially hazardous chemical into the sewer system. So it definitely knocked me down. And when we started this cancer treatment, one of the things my wife and I said to my wife was, I don't want us to miss out on anything. We're at the point where our kids are a little bit older. They're done with toys and stuff like that. So for Christmas, we like to buy them experiences. And so we had bought tickets to go to an NBA basketball game out of town. We had bought tickets to go see a Broadway musical at the big performing arts center in town. And those things hit like while I was in treatment. And we went ahead and did them. The Performing Arts Center, when we got back to the car, I got in the car and I just fell asleep. I was asleep before we got out of the parking garage, but we didn't miss the experiences. And that was something important that we wanted to make sure that we did to keep some sense of normalcy for our family. He did a cystoscopy, which by now, like, I've had so many things go up my urethra, like it's just like common practice, like, okay, I know what to expect. So we go, and he goes in and looks, and he says, I see no evidence of disease right now after the BCG treatment. And like that was just like so awesome, like so shocking. I wasn't expecting it at that point. Like I still know that I've got to have a surgery on the backside of this. So, and he says, I still want to go in and do the surgery. I want to remove the diverticulum because there's some sort of toxin that's getting into your bladder and growing in that diverticulum. We've got to get rid of that because it'll just come back, especially being high grade.
it has a high chance, high risk of coming back. One of the aspects too was that it was growing very close to one of my ureters. That's the tube from the kidney to the bladder. And so he kind of casually mentioned, yeah, we're going to take the diverticulum out and we're going to relocate your ureter. And that sounded like big. Like, I mean, you're just going to move this tube over and replant it. And so, he said, you're going to go home with a stent. You're going to go home with a catheter. And so the surgery was the biggest knockdown. Like the BCGs knocked me down, but the surgery was, and I'm the person that's like always on the move. And it was really, really hard at this point to stay down, but I had to stay down. I knew there would be an incision, but it was bigger than we expected it to be. I have a 6-inch scar that runs from my navel down. And so you come home with a catheter and you have to learn how to manage the catheter bag and empty it. And how to make sure that you can be as comfortable as you can under that circumstance. It definitely impacted the quality of life. And so, you get through the 10 weeks and now we're back at the start of school. And so I'm able to start walking around. I'm able to lift more than 10 pounds. So let's go back to work. And, that the first Friday that we had a football game, I did 10,000 steps and I was like, whoa, like my body isn't ready for this because to get to the bladder, they had to cut through a lot of core muscles and I had to basically rebuild my whole core. So on the backside of it, I did a lot of physical therapy and really didn't start to feel back to myself until around Christmas. So almost a full year of treatment, surgeries, etc., to get back to feeling like myself. I did a maintenance round in October, and that was 3 BCG installations. And then I did another round in January, February of this year. And I'm currently queuing up to do another set at the end of the summer in August. I graduated from doing stuff every 3 months to now doing stuff every 6 months. So that's a good step to be on. Every time I went to the restroom, it was like, is this normal? Does this hurt? Is it burning? Is there anything in that? Is there any blood? Like, so, and I mean, you go to the restroom several times a day. So even if you've been able to somehow block it out with work or other things that are going on, when you go to the restroom, now you're thinking about it and you're thinking, and even to this day, and the other piece of it is I was on a 3-month regimen of follow-ups and checks and cystoscopies and BCG treatments. And now I'm on a 6-month course. But when you come around to that cystoscopy where they're going to check and see if you have any evidence of disease, you're like, okay, so are they going to find anything? What if they find something? What does that mean? Am I going to go back down this road? But I also try to kind of self-talk myself that you're not feeling burning. You're not feeling the urgency. You felt all those things and you knew something was wrong with your body. At this point, you're not. But still, you go into that and you want to hear those words from the doctor so that you can, you can feel good about yourself again. And it's a celebration because, you work yourself up to expect the worst and hope for the best. Well, I'm going to be checked every few months for 5 years. So there's a chance it could come back. There's a high chance. So that's why I have to remain vigilant. There are so many things that I do in my life that I don't enjoy. And if this doesn't come out all right, and this is my last few years, I'm not going to spend them doing the things that I don't like. And there are things that I don't openly do in front of people, like dancing. I'm a principal. I have to make sure that I have a straight laced TikTok page. I can't be doing no. This is me. This is who I am, and I'm going to be me, and I'm not going to be apologetic about it anymore. And so you just kind of take assessment of the things that you want to do. We had already started in our life to move towards valuing experience over things. And so that's something that my family holds even more dear. We're going to value experiences together as a family over acquiring things. And it's just part of the assessment that you take of your life when you feel like you might have limited time left. And I'm set to start a new set of BCG, that's going to kick off the thoughts, and just, making sure that I make sure that I surround myself with positive people, and I make sure that I have things in my life to do that I love, that I can look forward to. So, and we're going to plan something on the backside of that set of treatments to look forward to, so that we're not just perseverating on the treatments themselves. I've learned how to manage them. I do find that my body is starting to tolerate them less well each time. The last round was burned more than ever, and so there were wonderings of, is this continuing to eat away at my bladder, and is it going to become more painful every time? So that's going to be a worry that creeps in. But I'm also, I've pledged all along from the beginning that whatever the doctors tell me to do, I'm going to do it, because it's not just about me. It's about my kids. It's about my wife. It's about my family and my loved ones. And I've got to be here for them. So whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do it. It's a small community. It's not huge. And there aren't a lot of people that want to talk about their urination. Um, so to open up about it, I think gives people a chance to think about it and think about their experience. Um, I've met some people that I've never met face to face, but I communicate with quite often, who are in the bladder cancer space and doing some of the same things that I'm doing, and we compare notes and bounce ideas off of each other quite frequently. But I've had people. I don't have a huge following. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that I'm like some sort of influencer, but it amazed me when I started getting messages from people that are like, I'm in the UK and this is what we do. To be able to communicate with other people in the shared experience of bladder cancer has been awesome. But then also to hear back from people that, like, your videos have helped me. They helped my dad. They helped us to understand what to expect. Thank you for doing these things. You explained this better than someone else did. That's worth it. That goes back to being an educator, and I talked about it at the beginning. It's not for the salary. It's because you see the growth in people. You see kids have that moment, and to see people have that moment in private messages to me on TikTok and say, your video did something to help me or help my family or help my dad. That's worth it. You can't put a dollar sign on that. It was the 1 year anniversary of my first BCG treatment. And so I said, I know where you are. I know that it feels like you're at a really low point. I know that you're in pain. I know that you're hurting. I know that you're tired. But know that you are there, that there are people that want you, that need you in their life. And you're doing this not only for yourself, but you're doing it for them. And I'm here a year later to be able to tell you that you can be on the other side of this. You can be in a better place. And I'm doing things. I'm active. I'm involved in my kids' lives. I'm traveling. I'm doing all the things that I wanted to do. And it's because I went through and did the treatments and did what my doctor told me to do. A lot of my guy friends would come to me kind of on the side and like how do I get checked? And I'm like, well, first of all, you really, the ways they check you really don't want to do unless you have to do. But just make sure that you are continuing to keep your appointments. And if anything feels weird about your body, speak up and say something. There are so many guys that want to be the tough guy. They want to power through it. Oh, I'm not hurting. This isn't bad. And they ignore symptoms. They ignore signs. And then later on, they find out that, they could have possibly done something earlier. And so that's been a big part of my message as I not only interact with people individually, but also on my page, just to say, guys, make sure you speak up, keep your appointments, go to the doctor. Some of you don't go to the doctor, go to the doctor, listen to what they say, tell them when there is something that feels different, because you need to make sure that you are catching early signs if there is something wrong with your body. It might not be bladder cancer, it might be something else. But you need to make sure that you are keeping those appointments and speaking up. Bladder cancer doesn't have to be a death sentence. There are treatments, and the exciting thing really is that there are so many treatments that are looking like they're going to come online very soon, for muscle invasive, for non-muscle invasive, for low grade and for high grade. But to know that there might be more options for bladder cancer patients, that's the really hopeful thing. The science is great. The doctors know what they're doing. There are treatment options that work for people, and just follow your doctor's recommendations, and you can do it. And I know my journey is different than everyone else's. Everyone has a unique journey with their bladder cancer journey. But I want you to know that there is hope. You can be on the other side of this. So everybody out there, hang tough. I'm nerdy. I read, some medical journals. I have a Facebook feed that's full of bladder cancer information. And so I'm trying to stay up on things and educate, people in the community. And I think, if you know that the experts and the scientists are working on things,
that can give you hope that, like, right now there's kind of only one path, and it's BCG for most people. But now there might be options, because some people don't respond well to BCG. And so if there are options, then that gives more people hope that might not have had it before.